All right, well, good evening, everyone. My name is Jerry Cooper. I am the Special Districts Project Manager for the City of Oxnard. Thank you all for joining us today here for our meeting for the teams that are surrounding the California Cove, La Village, Vineyards, Greystone, and San Tropez areas. Also on the line with us today, we have Steve Howlett. He is the Assistant Public Works Director who oversees the Special Districts Division. And conducting this meeting today will be CivicMic, Danielle Wood, and Pablo Perez. So again, thank you all for being here. We really appreciate this opportunity to provide you with information and a conversation about how we can improve the neighborhoods surrounding your districts. Danielle?
Thank you, Jerry. I'm Danielle Wood with CivicMic, and I have spoke with some of you over the phone and through email. So thank you for joining us tonight. We really appreciate having dedicated members of the community who are looking to make a difference. So we thank you for being here. As we've mentioned in previous meetings, high participation is key to success for this effort. So those of you that attended the first meeting have heard some of this, so I'll move quickly in order to get down to business. But the city hired CivicMic to assist with public engagement efforts for your community. Our main focus is to help communities and government, the city and organizations work together to create and realize sustainable visions for your community's future. So many of you are signed up through CivicMic.com, and you knew about this meeting prior to receiving a postcard in the mail. Signing up on our web page is the fastest and most reliable way to receive information about ReNew Oxnard Program. So if you have yet to sign up, please visit CivicMic.com/Oxnard and sign up at the bottom of the page. That's also where many of you RSVP'd to this meeting, and it's just a lot of information there. Once you're signed up, you can visit the neighborhood section and read information that's specific to your neighborhood and maintenance assessment district. So there's tons of useful information there, from the formation of the district, updated annual budgets, just a lot of details that we've put out there for you to review, and we'll continue to populate information on that website. So please visit it and sign up so you can see as there's updates. We send out notifications that there's updates. So this meeting is set up in a workshop form, and we'll cover a lot of information that's specific to your community. The last meeting was kind of general, talked about all the communities within the city that we're working with. So let me cover some quick ground rules before we get started. We are going to try and keep the meeting right around an hour so we don't lose your focus. In case you need to hop off at any time, everything that's covered tonight will be posted on CivicMic.com, so you can go there and view the meeting, watch it over and over, take notes. So we will be answering questions throughout this workshop. Save the chat feature though for questions if you can. Limit conversations on there. That way we can see what questions are being asked instead of having to scroll through conversations between individuals. If we don't get to your question, or I think we should get to everyone's questions, but if something else comes up, please feel free to reach out to us directly at civicmic.com or by phone at 1-800-676-7516, and all that contact information is on our website as well. So some expectations of a meeting this size: people talking during the presentation. If people have their mic on, it will be hard for others to hear what's being presented. So we will ask all participants to stay muted until you're either asking a question or there's some dialogue going back and forth. But unless you're the one speaking, please stay on mute. If you notice that you keep taking it off of mute and you get placed back on, we're doing that intentionally so everyone can hear without the background noise. So it's not something faulty on your computer there. But we want to gather feedback from everyone with various backgrounds and diverse values. We'd like to hear from as many participants as possible, and we will make every attempt to shield you from personal attacks and slander. So anyone who is using foul language, making personal attacks, will be moved to a private meeting room by the moderator until you can regain your composure. If that continues, you will be removed from the meeting and not allowed to return. Like we said before, we don't think that would happen. We haven't had that happen with any of the city meetings with the City of Oxnard, but we just want that to be clear so everyone knows what the expectations are. And we truly do want to hear your opinions, and we will not allow others to disrespect you for having different views. This meeting is intended to focus on how we can move forward. We know that many of you have history with the city, and we appreciate learning from the past, but please use this meeting to discuss ways we can move forward to build a better community. With that being said, let's move on to the community-specific workshop, and that will be presented by Pablo Perez from CivicMic.
Okay, well, I'll let you handle the hosting duties now. And welcome everybody. Thank you all for taking the time to participate in this meeting and effort. I think we can all safely agree on one thing, and that is that the public improvements both in the interior and the exterior of your neighborhoods being discussed tonight are in much need of repair and higher level of ongoing maintenance. Danielle and I, as well as the city, we believe that there's an opportunity here to turn these areas in the City of Oxnard around for the better. We believe that by doing so, we can actually improve the lives of many residents in the city. And we believe that we can be part of this effort, a success story that can then be replicated throughout the city. And how do we do this? Well, we plan on accomplishing this by engaging and informing you about the issues. We plan to be your advocate and together create viable solutions. What the solutions may look like? I know a lot of people have asked. Well, it really depends on the preferences of each community. Solutions may involve residents contributing to the maintenance work to some extent, if the residents so desire. We have received comments on the survey. Some communities do want to participate, others do not. Or may involve an HOA or a nonprofit organization, if so desire. We actually have one community that has a nonprofit organization opportunity where they could be of a major part of the solution. Or in the most common cases, we're reading may rely heavily on the city to manage and perform the work, or a combination thereof. Regardless, the ideal solution must result in a better partnership than what exists today between the city and its citizens. In my opinion, and in this particular case, the best chance for a viable and sustainable solution requires that the city be represented by the Special Districts Division. I say that because they're a small group of city employees dedicated solely to the implementation of whatever solutions come out of this new partnership. And that the residents be represented by a new to be created Citizens Committee, a small group of residents to work with the Special Districts Division on an ongoing basis to streamline communications and ensure a long-lasting partnership. We're not searching for a cookie-cutter solution or one-size-fits-all, but instead, we're meeting with you in smaller groups of neighborhoods individually to ascertain what works best for the specific needs of each group. But when possible, as you can see by the map that we're sharing, we will try to consolidate efforts to achieve efficiencies and economies of scale that should result in lower maintenance costs as well as administrative costs. I'm anticipating no fast outcomes, but steady progress through multiple workshop meetings. I'm anticipating the creation of a citizens committee early in the process for the best chance of success. In fact, that is what I hope to happen as an outcome of today's meeting. And we need volunteers. So volunteers, please, we need to hear from you. At the end of the presentation, I will give an email address, but if right now you have a pen and paper, you can email me, pperez@civicmic.com or dwood@civicmic.com. If you would like to be in the committee, that's very important. We need volunteers. We will need everyone's assistance in sharing the information with other residents. Participation is key. You need to recruit others to participate in future meetings. Most of the solutions will involve some sort of a special district, a financing mechanism that is going to a vote. As I mentioned on the previous meeting, the city cannot raise your property taxes. Such things are long gone. Proposition 218 pretty much took care of the last opportunity for that. So any solution that we put forth that involves funding will go to a vote of the residents of some sort. So participation and sharing the information is key for that. We will support your efforts with online and printed materials for dissemination, and we will hold as many meetings as needed to share information with you so you can share with others. Very important, we will vet solutions and work with the city on preparing the cost estimates for your review and further discussion. So we expect multiple iterations of this process where we meet with you, we talk about the types of improvements we want to maintain, to what level, and then we go back to the city and work on budgets, come back and sort of run it through until we find consensus. So ultimately, we anticipate achieving a consensus on a viable and sustainable solution that can be supported by at least 2/3 of the residents. 2/3 is a high bar. It's very, very important. If we go to a vote for any sort of funding, it's going to require a 2/3 vote. So today's meeting, what's on the agenda? This is a quick summary of what's to come. We will review where your property tax dollars are currently going. I will provide an overview of the special districts division. I will review the proposed geographical area that we have proposed to reduce the costs and achieve economies of scale. And from the survey, we will share what you have told us are your shared interests on how to improve the community. Also, we'll talk about desired outcomes with you and the level of desired citizen involvement that you prefer. So like I said, some communities want to be involved, others not as much. And then ultimately we'll finish with next steps. Okay, so I'm gonna change the screen and place something on the screen for you. Danielle, is the audio good so far?
Yes.
Okay, you can see that? All right, so the meeting tonight covers these 5 neighborhoods, right? You have them on the screen, California Cove through Vineyards. All of these neighborhoods have existing landscaping and maintenance districts. All of these neighborhoods are being served at a level F. That's the current level of service that you're receiving from the landscape maintenance district. F is absolutely the worst possible service level you can get. I believe that there's no trash or debris pickup. I want to say the service is quarterly. It's pretty bad. All of these communities, when they were developed many, many years ago, like you can see California Cove in 1990, Greystone in 96, as far back as 89 with Tropez, they were developed with the understanding, and this was a condition of development for the developer. So you may have bought the house then or many years later, but when the development came to the city, it was understood that a landscaping maintenance district or a special financing district of some kind was going to pay for the maintenance of the improvements within and around the community. That has been the case ever since. The city, in fact, has not really taken care of the improvements out of the general fund until recently when they started taking care of the outside perimeter and the exterior, which they cannot afford. The rates also have been frozen since. There's no inflator. There's no provision for inflator. We can't do anything about it. The city cannot increase it. That's Proposition 218 without taking all of this out to a vote. Okay, so that's what we are today. You can see here the number of parcels in each district, which really put it all together for tonight's meeting. In blue, you can see what the annual costs are for each right here. And then what the total assessment is. So you can compare this number, this assessment of $36,000 total for an annual cost of $39,000. This $39,000 is an F level of service. And this is your max assessment. So we're pretty much maxed out. That's why we are F right now. So for these 5 communities, there will not be an increase in the level of service. Things are just going to get worse because we're anticipating water costs, which rise every year. And in fact, water rates don't even follow any kind of inflator. So even if we had an inflator, we will probably still be in trouble by now. Okay, so I'll move over to the next page. So where is the money going? Because I hear from a lot of people say, well, I pay all these property taxes. And really, you do pay a lot of property taxes. But as you can see, really the city of Oxnard only gets 17 cents on the dollar. And I presented this at the last meeting, but I decided to go further because you can see the schools and the county, they're getting most of your money from what you pay in property taxes. So I went out actually and looked at the county database. This is actually every parcel within your community. And I found the tax rate areas. These are specific to your community. These are your rates, not 17 cents, but 18 cents, 15 cents, depends on what community you're in. California Cove has 2 different rates. And I actually sample properties in your communities. These are the values as shown by the county. They're not market values, though you can see probably here, these high numbers probably are. These are probably recent sales, right? And then you can see your property tax. You're paying a 1%. Again, this doesn't include other charges in your property tax. I'm just referring to the ad valorem tax, the big charge on your property tax bill. You can see that if we pick a house, let's say in Vineyards, it's the most expensive house right here, $752,000, pays about $7,500 on just the 1%. Of that, the city is only going to get $1,100 based on this rate. This is not a number we can play with. We cannot change it. It is what it is. It's determined by the state, and that's the end of that game. Of the $1,100, the first thing that happens is the city pays 45% and 50% in costs, total of 65% of its budget to police and fire. So that $1,100 comes down to $477. In essence, after you pay for police and fire, the city's getting really, for this big house, very expensive house, $477 or $40 a month. And you can see what the average costs are, which actually this is a US, I'm sure for California is higher. $40 a month towards all the services that you receive from the city, other than police and fire, right? And again, the water department is separate. That's a whole different charge. Sewer is separate. That doesn't really count. Trash is separate. You get a different charge for all of that. Now, what are these charges? Well, we have a $140 million budget for the general fund. The police takes $63 million. Fire takes $20 million of that. And by the way, one of the things we heard on the survey is that you would like to get more public safety. So if anything, this number should be higher, right? To get more public safety, right? Or better public safety. So what remains of the general fund is about $57 million. That is in correlation to this number right here. That's what that is for. This whole column and what you pay essentially is funding this $57 million. But the city has admin departments, so we take all of that off the top. City attorney's office, manager's office, billing, finance, HR, debt service, $23 million are gone out of the 57. Then you have a community development department with a cultural community services like library and such. Next thing you know, $21 million are gone. What's left for what we are essentially talking tonight, right? Your landscaping, your street resurfacing, your park maintenance, and all those things, it's $13 million, which effectively is your public works budget. Not a lot of money, and I'll show you why. It's important to put this in context. And by the way, this is not unique to Oxnard. This is a struggle for every city in California, unfortunately. So what do we do with this money that we have left, right? What is the city doing? Well, first of all, the city has 453 miles of streets to maintain. They're not in very good shape as it is. From what the report that I read, what is called the PCI index, it's around 57 or 60, and you want to be around 70 and 75. Once you get to 50, 55, so you're kind of on the bottom end, you start damaging the roads to the point where you cannot just fix them at an efficient or at a cheap cost, but rather you have to resurface them, completely take them out and replace them. So in order to maintain that, the city will need to spend $11.7 million to keep it at the same condition, which you do not want that, but rather to improve it about $50 million a year. Costs a lot of money. So I'll give you some examples of that. Just to do a thin overlay, this is just a 1-inch top to maintain a road. In 17, they did La Colonia. It's a small neighborhood, $1.3 million. Fremont North, $1 million. You can see Victoria Avenue from the south end to the north end of the city is $1.4 million to do a 1-inch overlay. As that's just streets. Then we talk about parks. There are 53 parks with 370 acres to maintain. 48 city sport courts, and there's 27 that need a full restoration, 21 need resurfacing, $3.9 million to do that. It's important to take a look at this document, I have actually provided this link here, and all this information will be made available in our website as a post, so you'll be able to click on that. But I really recommend that you read the 5-year capital improvement program that was put out by the city in April, because it really talks about the conditions of the infrastructure of the city and how really behind maintenance the city is and how much work needs to be done. Medians and parkways, we have 129 acres of landscaping to manage. Currently, the city has 56,000 trees to trim. 1,100 of those are dead. Currently, the city is on a 60-year schedule. That's not going to work. So, you can't maintain trees, trim them on a 60-year schedule. You should be around 10 to 5 years, somewhere in here. So the city is just not keeping up with all this maintenance. I just want to put that in perspective, because I hear a lot like, I'm paying all these taxes, and you are, but it's just not going to the city, okay? It's going somewhere else. So what about Measure E? That question came up a lot. Well, Measure E has a lot to pay for already. And certainly there's a part there that talks about restoration of landscaping services, and we can wait for that, but it may take a while. So I think we prefer to have these meetings and talk with you and figure out, okay, is there something we can do in the meantime before any Measure E funds may become available, because there are a lot of needs for Measure E. Now, earlier I mentioned the Special Districts Division. I want to point this out. This effort, these meetings that we're having, the ReNew Oxnard Program, whatever solutions come out of this, will be managed by the Special Districts Division. That is Jerry Cooper, which I'm sure many of you know. That is Steve Howlett, kind of new to the city. But it's a small group of people that are dedicated to just ensuring that this extra money that you pay for, currently the LMDs, the maintenance districts, and if we form something new, that whatever money comes out of that goes straight to the Special Districts Division, only for their use for your community and nothing else. You actually have a small group of people at the city. Here's your org chart that you can call, you can hold accountable to the work and the money that you're paying for. That is an important distinction. So it's important that you distinguish that from the rest of the city. For example, currently, the medians on parkways around your community are maintained by the Parks Division, right? Different group. They are understaffed and underfunded. Their schedule is more like once a year. So it's important to distinguish between who's doing what, right? And so in this case, our proposal and everything we're going to talk about is going to be handled by this group that are dedicated to managing the funds that come out of this effort, if additional funds come out, okay? That's very important to distinguish.
Pablo, we have a request for the share screen to be larger. I don't know if there's options on some of the pages to make it any larger.
Does that help? I made it. I mean, it's 200% there. Can you see it bigger on your end?
Yeah, for the map. I think maybe once we get down to the wording, we can see what we can do.
Let me know. Yeah, thank you. All right. So I had some questions about these teams that we created. I'm gonna reduce it just a little bit because I can show you here better. The idea here is that we want to capture the improvements on Ventura, right? Which is the currently maintained by the Parks Division, which is not really well funded. We want to capture everything on Vineyard, everything on H. We want to create this sort of block that as you enter and approach your communities from the outside, everything is beautiful. You're proud to live in this community. Yes, once you live Ventura and past Vineyards, I really don't know what it's going to look like, but at least around your block, right, of all these communities and inside, we're hoping that it's going to be to level A. We're looking to bring it up, to restore it, to bring it to what it used to look like, and make it look beautiful, make you feel like you're home. That's really the goal, and why we created this team and joined 5 communities together, also hoping to gain some economies of scale, right? This is just another picture of the same, and it includes all the districts inside. And this is what a satellite view looks like. And you can see we're talking about improvements along Ventura, which you're very familiar with, as well as Vineyard and H and everything inside, okay? So I'm gonna take a break here, let Danielle address public safety, which was a top concern pretty much on every survey that we have for every community in the city, right?
Right. So public safety, we highlighted here the items that we'll be talking about tonight, and public safety and homelessness are both not highlighted. And the specific reason is because for your community, the the benefit that would be received by having a program that has a portion of this through funding from residents and a portion of some type of volunteer activity, it wouldn't be enough. So any funding that comes from the community to say go towards public safety, you're not going to get a dedicated officer in your community. Things like that. There are also many programs that the Oxnard PD has in place for public safety, and they have a lot of resources for your community to use. They have a number of different programs, and we'll make sure to include that information on CivicMic.com, but they have, just in regards to public programs, they have the Eyes on Crime. Some of these you may have heard of. The Neighborhood Watch programs, obviously, stops teams, crime prevention. They have a lot of different resources that we can share, but we'll put those links out there. And the real value for public safety, because it is extremely important to everyone, of course, in the community that you live in, is seen through solely a group of individuals who come together and dedicate their time and energy to improving their community. So we can't really have this program. We can do what we're looking to do is a little bit of have everyone involved, if it's through funding or volunteering your time, but really for public safety, there wouldn't be a funding mechanism that we're looking for there. And the same with homelessness. So that is another issue that was big on the survey. And I know that it's important to stay on top of some of that before encampments start to be created. And the City of Oxnard has a web page that's dedicated to services that can help with this. And we'll make sure to post that on CivicMic as well, where there's I think there's 7 different groups that you can call to get temporary housing. Just as you see an issue come up or you see someone in the community that may need assistance with housing, you can call one of these numbers, and they have programs, huge programs that are set up to help with that. So I think really important as a community to make sure that individuals are staying on top of that and volunteer there, but again, not something that we would look to have any funding from the community. So it's not kind of a half and half, it's more just a community effort. I think that's all that I have on that, Pablo. So.
All right, very good. Okay, so as Danielle mentioned, from the survey, these are the results of your specific survey responses, not for another community, but rather these 5 communities or neighborhoods. The ranking here, you can see the lower the number, the more important the issue was to you. The maintenance of the landscaping inside the community was after public safety, most important to you, makes sense. You're receiving a level of service F, so clearly you want that to be better. Street lighting inside and outside surrounding the community was next, along with the maintenance of nearby parks. Maintenance of streets inside and outside. So like we talked earlier, resurfacing of streets, maintenance of the landscaping on the perimeter, the mediums and the parkways around your community, and sidewalks. So these were your top items. In the other, we asked you to list things that also matter to you, and you actually list those for us. A lot of the things were already covered. That's where they're highlighted inside of these other ones. For example, irrigation and sprinkler issues will be covered by any landscaping work being done here. Street sweeping will be part of the maintenance of the streets, and public restrooms part of the maintenance of the parks, and so on. So these things highlighted in bold, yes, these all came from you, and these are things that we can help with through some formation of a new district or some sort of effort. So the ReNew Oxnard program can help you with this, and that's what this is here for. I'm not saying that everything in here should be in the final solution, right? Because the more you add to this list, the higher the cost becomes, right? So it's become very, very expensive. But that's what's going to be part of the process, is us working with the city, putting all this first to start with, kind of break out all the costs, come back, sit down with you. What would rates look like? What things do you still want on the list? And kind of have the citizens committee that hopefully will form out of tonight's meeting, meet with residents, kind of take spread the word, everything we learn in these meetings, and do this in an iteration until we come up with a budget and a list of improvements that everybody is quote unquote happy with, right? And we can then proceed with whatever funding mechanism. One of the things we learned in the review and the survey is that the involvement of an HOA is absolutely not supported, and that was pretty adamant about that there's no question there, as a solution for your community. As an FYI, other communities thought that HOA could be a part of something, not here. So for these 5 neighborhoods, we're not even going to look at the HOA at this point as an option of anything. 42% of the respondents were interested in volunteering to complete some sort of a maintenance work. May that be, a cleanup day or a restoration day once a year, twice a year, working with the city. Any effort in your part obviously would help the city keep the cost down, right? Don't know what the savings will be, but there's also a civic component to that. So having a citizens committee coming out of this effort to coordinate that with the city will be very, very helpful, I feel, both to you for personal reasons and also to help with the cost somewhat, right? So there's some interest there. Before we talk more about improvements, I want to review these levels of service that I have mentioned before. The full description of the service levels can be found at our website. We have a data center with lots of information. And again, all these documents will be made available to you. You will receive them via email, and you'll be able to click on these links and all that. But important to know, you're currently here with the F level of service. And I just did the main things: trash, mowing, and aging. The actual description has a lot of different categories. But as you can see, there's no trash and debris removal happening right now because of the F level. I have highlighted A and B because, in my opinion, you should really be shooting for A. We'll run B as well just to see what the difference in cost is. But remember how we talked about water. Even if we had an inflator for, let's say 2% a year, water doesn't follow that. So my advice will be start at level A, because over time, water costs will creep in and take you down to level B. That is going to happen. There's no way around it, because really to put an inflator there to account for water increases will be a very high inflator, which in my opinion has never been supported by any community that I have ever worked with. So the sweet spot I feel on an inflator is 2%. So 3%, but 2% is every day we have passed districts and financing of this type of work at 2% inflator per year. So my advice to you is let's go for A, but we'll run the numbers on both, okay?
Pablo, there was a quick question on, we have a question from Robert saying the HOA was not supported as a solution by who? And Robert, the answer to that is the individuals who took the survey that was sent out to your community. So we relied on information from those who responded to the survey, and it was overwhelmingly not supported by those who responded.
And that's where a citizen committee can clarify some of those things for us, right? Because really, not everybody took the survey, just like not everybody's here. But working with a citizen committee that goes door to door and meets with everybody can come back and say, hey, I know you saw this on the survey, but these things are not really what's panning out. And we're totally fine with that. That's exactly what we need, boots on the ground. So desired outcomes, okay? So from where we sit, if I had a magic wand, what would I like to see, right? And I think it will be, it will really bring your communities back and provide you with really good surroundings. Currently, you're paying for trees, shrubs, and ground cover, and clearly not getting a good service because there's just not enough money. So level F, right? We would love for the outcome of our effort to be managed by the Special Districts Division. I feel strongly about that because you can then hold them accountable. You have a small group, a division. This is the only thing they do. They're not doing work throughout the city. They're not handling parks everywhere. They're not doing street work here and there. This is the only thing they do. So I think I feel that we can get better transparency, ongoing reporting out of the Special Districts Division that we can from anybody else. And that's the next item here. I want to add some sort of transparency, and I think I misspelled that, and communications throughout the year. Something like a dashboard, something where you can see where the money's going, how it's being spent, and what the balances are and all that. We love to rehabilitate and improve the maintenance to a service level A. I think there's going to be some sort of an investment period. Your plants, materials are going to need some love. Your sprinkler systems are going to need some love. And so there's going to be a period of time where it's just going to get better and better and better. We want to include the outside surrounding improvements, right? Currently, the districts are only handling the inside at an F level. There's really nothing happening on the outside. The mediums and parkways is just not really being taken care of. We need to capture that, and that's why we want to capture the whole area. We want to gather input from you as to what other new improvements you want in there, what other things should be added. For example, other communities have been asking about stop signs or speed bumps, things like that. Well, those things can be done. We just need to work with you, figure that out, put it in the budget, run the numbers and see what they look like, right? And then lastly, very important out of this effort that we create a citizen committee for ongoing support and involvement. Transparency. This question has come up a lot. Yes, we need to create some sort of a dashboard, some sort of a communication, some reporting that shows where the money is going, how it's being spent, and what the budget looks like, what the service level looks like. I totally agree with that. And so some of the things that we'll work with you on is to figure out what should be on that dashboard. I think everybody's familiar with the COVID dashboards now. That's online, available to everybody. And creating something like that that is updated twice or 3 times a year, I think could be very, very helpful to the effort.
Pablo, there's a question just quickly before you move on about the rates that were shown at the beginning for each of the maintenance assessment districts. And this one says that it shows $183 for 100 homes for Vineyard, and that price is paid twice a year. But I believe those amounts shown there are the amount that's for the total year.
Yeah, this is the annual assessment for Vineyards, and I hope I got it right. So this is your current, is that correct, Jerry? Does it look right to you? 183 for Vineyards for 100 homes, which funds the 18,300, which provides you with level F improvements in the inside only, right?
Yes, so that does look correct to me. The $183 is for the year, but you do pay your property tax bill twice a year. So it would be 50% of that cost.
Right. And I believe they're at the max, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Yeah, everybody's at the max here. So I hope that, so that price is not paid twice a year. So 183, so everything here is annual, okay? So I don't show any half year amounts. So 183 is divided by 2, okay? So scroll down again. So as I mentioned, new improvements. So this is ideally what we want to get in is the interior, the exterior, have a citizens committee, and then there's add some transparency to the process, obviously, something that you don't currently have now. It's not very easy to get information. The city is actually going through the process currently of changing their finance department accounting software, which I think is going to be very helpful to this effort because you'll be able to get reports much easier than we are now. New opportunities for improvements. Some of the things that can be added currently not in the districts that you have. Lighting, which was listed as a need. Sidewalk repair, that with all the trees, that's likely something you can have. Street resurfacing and maintenance, currently not there. You can add it. Street sweeping, obviously the maintenance of nearby parks. You can have capital improvements. There's pretty much, we can add anything we like. The issue comes down to cost, right? And in fact, you don't have to do it all in 1 year. You could also create a plan where you add certain things throughout the years, right? So we set a rate, something we call pay as you go, where you're paying an extra amount every year and stash away for some project, something that's going to happen 5 years from now. So these things can be all worked out. Really, all we need to do is first work with you and figure out what things matter the most to you, get some costs and see what it looks like and how we can spread it over time, right? And then tonight's meeting, probably the most important thing that I'd like to hear from you is how will you like to be involved and to what extent? Because that's really going to guide this budget in what we do next. And it's okay. I understand there's communities where you want the the residents to do very little and everybody wants the city to do it, that's perfectly fine. There are some places where some of the residents want to be involved, and that's perfectly fine as well. So there are various ways that you can get involved. Obviously, you can have a once a year, twice a year event where you do replanning or maintenance work with the city together. You do cleanup events. You can mobilize some community assets. There's people in the community that may be in the industry and may be able to provide some assistance or work. There may be experts in the field that can help the city with making decisions about how to spend the budget and so on. We have a community where there's a nonprofit organization willing and able to make that community a pet project, right? For native drought resistant planting. Well, that's a great opportunity, but that's not something everybody has. That community has it because there's someone there who knows somebody, right? And we're able to mobilize that. But most importantly, above all, this last one, if we end up with a standing citizen committee to participate, work with us, and then stay on to work with the city, by far is the best thing and the best outcome and the best way you can participate. So I think at this moment, I'm going to take a break and maybe handle some questions, and then we'll go to next steps. Does that make sense? So I'll let you, Danielle, handle that.
Okay, I think we've addressed most of the questions here.
Sorry, I was hitting on that and
That's okay.
by mistake.
That's okay. We've addressed most of them that are in the chat here besides one. Can you cover again, well, there's a couple here, and then we'll go to people who have questions that didn't type them in the chat. But someone is asking here if setting up this special district relieves the general fund of any maintenance in the future. So can you just explain how the general fund is not set up?
Right. So it doesn't relieve the general fund because the general fund is really not responsible for much. It has never been. So as we started with the at the beginning, we mentioned how all of these 5 communities, when they were developed back in the late 80s, early 90s, it was a condition of development that that they will have a financing district where you currently have a landscaping maintenance district to pay for the maintenance of the improvements outside and inside the community. And that has been the case. The city general fund hasn't really paid much to maintain your community since then. A few years ago, when the districts could just no longer afford much, as you can see, we're at level F, the exterior improvements were removed from the districts. And so that responsibility went to the city's general fund, which is the first time the general fund was really involved in maintaining your community. And that's just for the exterior. But it really hasn't done a good job at it because the general fund has never been set up for it. And if you drive through the city outside of areas where you have a community facilities district, like River Park and Seabridge and others, you will notice what the general fund can afford for the perimeter, right? Not very much. So when I say the schedule is once a year, if I recall correctly, that's how often they go out. So if your perimeter, if you see somebody working on the median, you're not going to see them for another year. So it's not really relieving the general fund of anything because they really never had that responsibility. You want to address the next question, what types of financing could be considered?
Yes.
So in order to capture the outside, right? So we want to capture that perimeter, the median, the parkway. Your best solution here will be a community facilities district. Many of you may recall them as Melrose. They're the same thing. Seabridge has one. River Park, there's a few others in the city. They're for maintenance. They do very well. And the reason for that is because an assessment district can maintain stuff on that perimeter exterior. There's just too much traffic going on that is not for your community, something we call general benefit. So the assessment districts can pay for that. Assessment districts can do well in the inside, but nothing on the outside. So that's a problem that we have, right? So if we want to capture the outside and make sure the whole community looks great from the outside in, CFD, which is the abbreviation of the Melrose type, is your best solution. Second thing with them, they're very flexible. More than any other solution, with a CFD, we can have capital improvements. We can do that with a landscaping maintenance district. So if we want to build something, we can do that. We can cover a lot of things like stop signs, speed bumps, street resurfacing. We can really throw everything in there versus a landscaping aligned district is very, very limited. For example, in the assessment world, to do street resurfacing or street maintenance, you will have to, in landscaping, you will have two districts, a separate charge for the landscaping part and a separate charge for the street maintenance. You couldn't commingle that together. And that's just by law. It's the way it works. We sort of, different financing mechanisms come out of what are you trying to pay for? That's the first question. So the first thing we need to ascertain is what is the list of things we want to pay for, and that will give us the best solution for that. The CFD is just a great one all around because it really doesn't matter what you throw at us, we can pretty much cover it. So that's the main one right now, but it doesn't mean that that's the only one, right? So if a special district is formed, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Pablo, real quick. I definitely want the residents to also not be frightened by the mentioning that Seabridge, Westport, River Park are all current CFDs. I know that a lot of people associate the CFDs with very high Mello-Roos, and that just isn't always the case. It's really about what you as residents want within that CFD that will dictate that budget.
Yes, it's like specifically designed. That's why we talked about the iterations of this budget with you, right? It's specifically designed for you. It's going to be your improvements, your plant materials, the quality of whatever science you have. It's your improvements, nobody else's. And it's also depending on the number of parcels that we have. That's why we want to include the whole block, because the more parcels we can spread it throughout. Also, the maintenance cost should be lower, having one contract, for a larger area and so on a per unit basis anyway. But yeah, the rates vary from district to district and you really couldn't compare it. Next question is, if a special district is formed, like a Mello-Roos or a CFD, same thing, or an assessment is created, would the current assessment be terminated? Absolutely. Whatever solution comes out of this will essentially kill what you have right now. The charges that I showed on the first page, like that 183 for Vineyards, will go away. And in fact, that could be put into the documents. That's how I've done it before, so there's no doubt about it. In the resolution forming the new district, it will specify that if this district is approved, district A, B, C, D, E will go away. Why? Because these all assessment districts are in pretty bad shape. They have no inflator. They really can't do much anymore, so there's no point in keeping them around. It's better to replace them with the latest and newest funding mechanism that has an inflator and has all this other capability. They will just get on the way and make Jerry and the team work that much harder, and having to keep track of this whole thing, right? That is just sitting there taking more time that they could be doing something better.
Pablo, there was a direct message in between those to me about the HOA. The village has an HOA that they're paying to cover many of these items. And then they ask, are they not? Do we have specific information? I mean, I know we do, but do you have that readily available on what the HOA is covering for that community?
I do not, but that will be part of the iteration process, right? This is why we need a citizens committee in place to get all these things for us, and so we can work together. For example, if Le Village, right, has that, in a special district like a CFD, you can create what is called improvement areas, right? Where you actually have different levels and different rates depending on who's doing what. So all those things will need to be figured out, absolutely, and we want to hear what that is and who's paying for what. And obviously, we'll work with the city on figuring all that out.
I can confirm that at this time, there are no maintenance agreements within the landscape maintenance districts with any homeowners associations. So if a homeowners association has taken up performing any of the maintenance duties in city areas, it has not been with any discussion with the special districts division of the city.
Okay, and that's important to know because, like I said, those are things that need to be considered in the budget and the process and setting off the rates. Jerry, there's a question here for Melody about street signs that I'd like you to kind of make a note of. Street signs are needed in the Vineyards to have parking, and there are so many cars that the street isn't being swept. So in regarding the sweeping part.
And Melody, you can email me directly at jerry.cooper@oxnard.org, and I can be a liaison between the residents and the streets division about potentially adding some of those street signs.
And yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yes, in regards to a 2/3 vote, this is the biggest hurdle. This is why a citizen committee is extremely important. I just cannot emphasize that enough. So let's say we did the iteration, which will give us plenty of time, I feel. And if there was an organized group here, yes, we will support you all the way. We'll give you as much information as you need. We'll have as many meetings as needed so that you can spread the word, get everybody on board. But at some time, it will go from this group to the official formation process, which is multi-steps of resolutions to be considered by council, reports to be prepared by a special tax consultant, rates to be finalized, different provisions like the inflator, possibly a sunset with a renewal process. There's so many things we can do, right? Which will be all worked out to this process of iteration with you. But at the end of the day, city is not going to be able to do much with any of that. It's going to have to go to a vote of the registered voters in the case of a CFD, the Melrose that we're talking about, right? Which gives you the most options because you can have pretty much everything on the list that you ever want to, plus capital improvements. We can do a lot of things with that. So it is your best option, but it is a 2/3 requirement. So you need to get 2/3 yes vote from the registered voters casting ballots. That's a high bar. So that's why it's so important that you all organize, talk to each other, and everybody's informed and part of the process. Because I tell you, the first thing that is going to happen is if you have not been in these meetings, if you have not talked to somebody in the committee or a neighbor that you have shared things, information with, when you get the ballot, this person is going to vote no, guarantee. Just immediately send it back. That is how it works on every city, in every place that we work with. If they're not part of the process, most likely, by far, they're going to vote no. So this whole effort would never really come to fruition. We have never seen the results of it, unfortunately.
And the city is going through this process to make sure that your funds aren't wasted on that process if there's not a desire to move forward in that manner. So that's why it's really important for forward and say,
there, you're back.
Oh, sorry, to come forward and say that you want to be part of the steering committee to help move whatever decision is made forward without spending money for, that's not necessary.
So on the next question, has a study ever been done? No. So when it comes to the amount that you're paying right now on the LMDs, the maintenance districts, those rates were set back in '89 and the early '90s, and they haven't changed since. That is the last time a study has been done on anything regarding the benefit that you receive from those improvements and so on. But realize that the service levels has dropped. A lot of things have changed. So if we were forming a new district like this MELO or CFD, whichever name you prefer, same, that is what the special tax consultant does, right? I mentioned briefly about improvement areas. Like if you had an area that is not really receiving that benefit or not as exposed as other areas of the district, yes, you can set different rates. Everybody doesn't have to pay the same. That is sort of down in the weeds. We're not going to have that yet until we have a cost, until we know exactly where everything is at. And then the special tax consultant will run those numbers. So yes, indeed, that will be done. Question from Melody about where the money has been going all these years and now services for dead trees. Well, let's go back to that because I always find this very interesting, Melody. Indeed, you have been paying in the maintenance district for many, many years, right? And the rate has been the same since 1990 for California Cove. The same for any of these districts. Nothing has changed. $84 a year, $112 a year, $91 a year, $173 a year. There's really not many parcels. Look, I don't care how you multiply this.
Sorry, Pablo, can everyone see the, okay, there you go. Sorry, I couldn't see the screen.
Oh, a delay. There's just not that many parcels here at these very low rates to provide much. The cost to service and maintain the improvements is high. And that's not unique to Oxnard. Every city, it's incredible how much it costs to do things. My wife actually is used to be a junior estimator for a construction company. And I'd just be shocked. Like when they worked on parks for the city of Fontana, they were doing a project, paying for a trash can. I mean, this is just those metal trash cans you see. They're thousands of dollars. Every single thing you do for a city project costs a bundle of money. It's actually beyond my understanding, but that's just the way it is. The maintenance of this work is actually bid out by the city every 3 or 4 years, right? And it goes to the lowest bidder. You're getting the best price there is, and there's just not enough money there. I'll show you this other slide just to give you samples of that again. Here's some of the costs. You can see this is a 1-inch overlay. This is not a resurfacing of a whole road where you're taking everything out like you do every 12 years or a 36-year schedule. This is just plain maintenance. La Colonia is not that big of a community. And Victoria south to north for $1.4 million. This is in 2017. Projects cost a lot of money, unfortunately. It's very hard to comprehend, but there's just not enough here. So yes, you have been paying, but it's just not been keeping up. Nothing that costs $173 in 1990 costs that today. And water, I will say, Jerry, that's the biggest. I mean, water for the city of Oxnard and any city that I deal with, I'm shocked. It's 13% a year, 26% a year increases. How do you keep up with that? You realize that if you cannot afford the water, your plants are also going to go south, right? So it's sort of a catch-22. It's a horrible circle, vicious circle. It's just not there. There's just not enough money here to maintain this area. Jerry, I'm not familiar with Measure All. I don't know if you want to address this question about Measure All. Danielle, you can read it for her.
Oh, Measure O was passed several years ago to fix the streets, but the city used those funds for other purposes. Will the transparency dashboard include Measure O funds for the streets?
The transparency dashboard for special districts would only be for special districts assessments. Special districts does not utilize Measure O funds, and that would be through more information for that would be available through other divisions within Public Works, like streets, or at a higher management level with the assistant public works director in charge of the streets division.
You don't get any funding from Measure All, right?
We do not. The one caveat to that was the city council did approve Measure O funding for the water quality issue, but not specifically for individual landscape maintenance districts.
Right. I have a couple of questions on maintenance that is not being done. So I want to recap. If you're looking at improvements on the exterior of the community, right? Let me actually, if I can bring this up. I hope everybody can see that. Along Ventura Road anywhere, along H Street anywhere, along Vineyard anywhere, right? Anything on the outside against your wall over here in the middle, that is not maintained by the Special Districts Division. Is not included in your assessment district because there's just not any money there to cover that anyway. That is maintained by the city's general fund, just like it is for the rest of the city, other than places where there's an existing special district that is well funded. It looks bad. Yes, it's not maintained. Your districts are dying. There's no money in the general fund for it. It is on a once a year schedule. That's really what's happening. So yes, all those areas. And then if even in the inside, your districts are now at an F level. So they're joining, right, the general fund quality because they're at once a year, you're at once a quarter. And that's what's really happening right now. Question about planting native trees and shrubs. Would love to. If that's something this group wants, we can definitely have the city include that in the budgets. I think long-term, it will save you money on irrigation You actually being in a level F may actually provide you with opportunity to do this better than any other people, because I had projects where residents want to do this, but they have really good plants already, right? So in essence, you're removing good plants and spending all this capital money to put in these other types. And so their payback is not as good. Here, you're a level F. You might as well consider that, since you're going to replace the plant material anyway, that actually is a good idea and definitely something worth considering. So those interested in being in the citizens committee should consider that, so we can work with the city on figuring that out and get those costs. Jerry, form validation or certificate be provided for community volunteers for college purposes. Have you ever? I'm actually not familiar with that, but I'm sure we can figure out.
I have never been requested to write something like that. I would be happy to write a letter on behalf of any community volunteer or college student. I know Recreation does a number of volunteer events throughout the community, and I can reach out and collaborate with them to see what they have been doing for their volunteers and definitely replicate that. That is not a problem. I have written many recommendations for college students based on volunteer work. So
good. So if that's part of the plan, right, we'll incorporate that into the program essentially, that has these events throughout the year. The committee will plan it with you and then make sure those certificates are issued. If a CFD is proposed, when will the election take place? Okay, so it's a long game here, right? We have a lot of work ahead of us. Let's say that it takes 6 months for us to figure out this budget, get all the iterations, and get to the point where you as a group feel that everybody has been informed, they're able to make an informed decision, and that we seem to have really good support to spend the money, because really to form a CFD is going to cost money, to pay the consultants, to create the documents, to go through the city council. And I will now recommend, note for you, Danielle and I and the city have been very strong about this. I'm not in any rush to have the city pay a consultant to form a district that is going to fail. That is not my end game, and it gives me no pleasure. I will recommend the formation of a CFD or any other mechanism whenever I feel there is sufficient support. So you're going to let me know that through surveys, through your interaction with us, right? To spend $35,000 forming a CFD to fail is, in my opinion, a waste of money and the last thing you need, since you barely have any money. So let's say we do get to the point where everybody feels good, this is what we want. To form a CFD is going to take between 6 and 8 months. So best scenario, we're in February, I will say August, we maybe get to the point where we start the process. Ballots will not go out until what, March of next year? And that means if it passes, it will show up on your tax bill for the first time December of 22. Okay, it's a long game. That means that between now and then, you're getting level F of service, right? That's going to continue until then. So it's a long process, unfortunately. Prevailing wages comment. I'm not, it says except we have to pay prevailing, so I'm not really sure, but whatever the city does, you're under an obligation to pay prevailing wages, even through contractors. That's just part of the city's policy. In fact, even if you had an HOA do the work, because you're doing the work on public property, you will have to pay prevailing wages. There's really no way around that. That's just, I want to say, a court case that came out, and the city's following that.
I think Ned is probably just letting everyone else know that, how I read it, that yes, that's why part of the reason why things are so expensive.
Right.
The city doesn't have a choice there.
If a maintenance of the medians is going to be added, should in part of that cost be apportioned to the city? So this is, again, the exterior median parkways improvements that you're currently getting service from the city once a year, right? So the city is not able to provide you a higher level of service. So I'm not sure if we're trying to sort of charge the city, but I can tell you that's probably not going to work very well. I will recommend that we concentrate on bringing your community back into a great state where from the moment you drive on that corner of Vineyard and Ventura on 8th Street, you feel really good about it. We don't know what the costs are going to look like yet. So I think we just got to figure that out, see what the rates are like. I don't think the city is in any position, I'm pretty confident of that based on what I've seen from the budgets, to really contribute much further. And the Measure E is going to play out over the next few years. So I don't think we're there yet. One of the comments I got from other groups is that, well, what if Measure E kicks in, right? And 5 years from now, the city's doing much better. You know, we can work with that. There are ways to set up a Melrose that has a sunset with unautomated renewal. There's different things we can do where we can say, okay, we're going to form a district that goes for so long. You give the special districts division a chance, an opportunity to perform, right? And then it goes to a new vote, something really easy. We can structure that it doesn't cost you a lot of money. And then it can be renewed. This practice is normal with business improvement districts. Well, they'll have a business improvement district for the first 5 years, subject to a renewal for 10-year periods. Okay, so there are things we can do, and we can structure this in a way that works for you, but we're not there yet. We're sort of gonna get through, right, the budget iterations and see what it looks like, and we need to have that committee in place. Yes, the sales tax. This is the Measure E. Not sure about this question. Too bad the developer wasn't the one voting when the developments were going on back in the day. That is correct. The way these districts were all formed, and they're still formed today, if you had a new developer come to town, and they're most likely going to be forced to form some sort of a special district, that continues to be the mitigation and the requirement for development, they're going to be the single vote. Yes, that's how it works. And it works for every community in the state the same way. They sell the homes and you get to pay for it. It's very, very simple. Not great, but that's how it works. Jerry, there's a mention here about a street paving done a few years ago, poorly completed. A company from Texas did the work. The question is, was an inspection done by the city after the completion of the repayment, which you'll assume so, right? I mean, that's...
Yeah, I can't speak to any of the street paving work, but Melody, when you send me the email about the street signs, I can work with the streets division and the streets manager to see if there are available inspection reports for that, and to see if there is any current plan for repaving that poor work within your district. I can say that over the last 3.5 years since I've been with the city, there has been a turnover in management in the streets division. And there is a new transportation manager that came on recently as well. So I can work to get you the information about the streets and if they have a plan of action for them.
Okay. Next comment or question is about the HOA. Yes, so they having an HOA be responsible for the work is an option. You can enter into an agreement with the city to maintain the public improvements. And in fact, some of the HOAs have taken over some of the improvements throughout the city and paying water and other things. Their comment is about wouldn't an HOA be more efficient? In many ways, yes, right? From the administrative perspective, the truth is government is not the most efficient system out there, just the way it works. So yes, the HOA could do some things better, but they will still have to pay prevailing wages, right? So you wouldn't be able to award the contracts. The HOA wouldn't be able to award the contracts like you do for private work. So in that regard, it doesn't save you on that end, but it may save you in the administrative part of it. We're not opposed to that. I think the city is very open to whatever solution works best for you. We just need to hear from you as the community that that's what you want, because HOAs are not something that everybody likes. In fact, we heard strongly from the people who responded to the survey that they're not interested in HOA in having one. But let's see, Danielle, you want to read some of these for me? I think the last one I have here is the median on Stone Creek.
Yeah, did you see, have succulents been considered as a replacement or artificial grass like on Gonzales?
So for the current level F that you have, there will be very little money for what I call a capital improvement, the replacement of plants, right? So what happens is on the replacing plants, you need to have money for that. So that's sort of, yes, if we were having a new district, absolutely, this could be a component of it, of replacing some of these items with artificial grass or drought-resistant materials, but that costs money, unfortunately, right? Now, maybe if there was an event where we have the citizens involved, this could be all figured out, but that is an option. It's just something that currently it's kind of difficult to do with a lack of funding.
The next one says the median on Stone Creek Drive is taken care of by a couple who I see planting and caring for the plants, flowers. Can we thank them for their hard work? Yes, definitely. I believe they volunteer. Can we learn from them? Yes, if they're on this call, or if anyone on this call knows who they are. That's exactly who we want. Well, we'd love for all of you to participate in the community committee, but those are the type of people that we would like to be involved as well. So yes, we can learn from them. And then you say that the sprinklers need repair and there's lots of water that leaks.
On the screen.
There's a lot of water that leaks onto the street. When they're on, that would also be part of the citizens committee, looking for volunteers in the community to report this information back to Jerry, to have a liaison between the special districts department and the community where they're being informed of this information on a continuous basis. So, and getting it to the right person. So that's why I think it's really important that we had Jerry on this call, because some of these complaints may go to different departments, just like Jerry answers a lot of questions, maybe not only complaints, but questions about other departments. We need to make sure that the right questions and comments are getting to her so she can address them. Are those individuals who take care of that median on this call? I hear no one. Okay. Let's see. Several years ago, the City of Oxnard removed trees from sidewalk landscaping from the village. Must we go through this present effort to have them replaced?
Jerry, you want to address why were they removed? Were they deceased or in trouble?
I don't know. It really depends on when the city removed that landscaping and in what area. So I would have to go back and do some research. I know that I have not, in the 3.5 years that I've been here, I have not authorized any removal of landscaping.
Okay.
So again, it would depend on the area to be able to address that question.
Okay. And we can replace them through this effort for sure. In fact, we can plant anything new, change things, and repair the sprinklers. In fact, I'm pretty sure your irrigation system is in dire need of an upgrade. I have other clients that have spent years upgrading their irrigation systems to these very modern computerized systems that are very, very efficient. So I think that's all possible and beneficial to you in the long term. I will strongly suggest that the budget for this new effort include a certain amount of money to restore and improve and upgrade irrigation and plant materials throughout.
Is there, before we go any further? Yes. Is there anyone on the phone that has a question?
Yes, I have a question. This is Alvarez. Do you have like a database in your website where we can put the issues? Because somewhere that we can be, it can be transparent. You put the issues, and then you guys can say, okay, we're working on it or something.
So for currently the city uses their 311 system. I'll show you, in fact, and I'm gonna take you can all see this, I'm sure, live. I'm just taking you to our website. You select Oxnard, go to the main page. That's the actual address here on the top. If you go all the way to the bottom, and the city has this on their website too, you can just click here to report a problem. This is the main portal for the city, including the special districts division, how to receive complaints about pretty much everything, right, Jerry? I mean, this is why how you mobilize the contractor and your staff and public works staff to repair and do things. If you click in here, it's going to load. This is actually a city website address. You can see we do not maintain 311, but you basically go on here.
I can't see it.
Can you see it? Oh, you're on the phone. I'm sorry.
So, but it's like your website, right?
Yeah, you can go to civicmic.com, Oxnard. The bottom of the main landing page for Oxnard has a 311. The city website also has it. And obviously you can type 311 Oxnard in Google and you will find it.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because for example, I complain about the water quality because it has a sulfate that is very high, 300 and something. The EPA recommends no more than 250. And I guess the water quality people said that they can't do nothing about it. Oh. So what are they there for if they can't, resolve the problem? Yeah. The other thing is, you're talking about finances. Who is in charge of finances on the city? The city is supposed to have an infrastructure to take care of everything and be transparent. So is it this is city manager who's supposed to be looking at if they don't have enough money, what can they do? For example, I mean, we bring the Dallas Cowboys here and we don't charge them nothing. We have parks that we don't charge parking for tourists. You know, things like that. Who is in charge of making these type of decisions? If we don't have the money, let's find the money. Right. Homeless, we can use them. I mean, if we're providing housing for them, they should provide something in return. You know, we can't just give them and not get nothing in return.
My advice
you've been talking about Melrose. I don't want Melrose. I don't want to pay anymore because we already paid property taxes. We have managers to manage finances. They need to do their job.
So Albert, I will, in regards to your question about finances, obviously the finance department handles the finances of the city, but in regards to your comments about fees that could be implemented to recover or raise revenue, definitely suggest to you that you go to a council meeting and bring those issues up, because that's really how that's going to kind of play itself out and a good way for you to get some answers.
A database. That's why I need a database that we can put the issues that we see and provide solutions and have them, brainstorm it and then implement.
Yeah, and so 311, you have general questions, you have homeless, abandoned. So when you go to 311, you'll see the various categories where you can submit those needs, and they're tracked. There's a map, and you'll get to see how your request is being handled by the city when it's completed and so on. But I appreciate that.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Were there any others that were on the phone or that didn't want to type in the chat, just wanted to speak a question?
And I think we have some new questions in the chat as well, right?
Yes. The next one here, there are tree roots in the neighborhood that are uprooting sidewalks. Who should I contact to discuss this?
So Melody, within your district, sidewalks are not an authorized improvement, so that does fall under the general fund streets division. They deal with sidewalks, so they would be the ones to deal with any sidewalk repair or replacement. My suggestion for that particular item would be to put that into 311, because then that will get routed to the streets division. But additionally, when you send me your email about the street paving and the street signs, I will include the sidewalks and tree uprooting within my email to the streets manager.
And I'm pointing to the 311 page right now under streets. It talks about broken sidewalks. That's where you will submit that request. In fact, sidewalks rarely are in any of the LMDs. There's a handful of them that have sidewalks, but for the large majority of the maintenance districts are currently not, were never set up to handle sidewalks. That will be something that could be added to the new CFD, right? We pretty much add any of that into it. Obviously, there will be a cost, so we have to figure out if we keep it on the list or take it off the list at a later iteration. Regarding somebody earlier asked about a study about apportionment. I didn't hear the answer. isn't it true that if people's main concern is general benefit, then a CFD or LMD is not a solution? So the general benefit, it's a little bit, here's a little bit of basics for special financing districts. Assessment districts, like a landscaping maintenance district, a benefit assessment district, a property business improvement district. These are all assessment districts. And these things is what Danielle and I have been doing for longer than I wanted to when I started, almost 30 years. Yeah, next year, 30 years doing this. It has gotten really complicated. An assessment district is for special benefit, right? It has a lot of hurdles, a lot of requirements. That's why it works well for the interior of the community, but it wouldn't be able to pay for anything in the exterior. A CFD doesn't have that constraint. A CFD by its very nature is general benefit. You can make a nexus out of benefit, but it's not required, right? You don't really have to show that. CFD is a great option if you want to fund things on the outside of a perimeter around your community where you have thousands and thousands of cars driving by who are enjoying the views of your trees, the mediums, and all the beautiful stuff that you have around your community. And in fact, they will enjoy it very much because they will have not seen any of it until they hit the corner of your community. It's pretty much going to look really bad until they get to you. So that absolutely a CFD is a great option because it can do both. You can do interior, exterior, can do pretty much anything. Use of reclaimed water. Jerry, this is, I don't know if you have any lines out there.
Yeah. So unfortunately, within these neighborhoods, there is not currently any connectivity for reclaimed water. We did lay all of the appropriate piping for reclaimed water in the River Park area. However, the wastewater treatment plant does not have capacity at this point to provide reclaimed water to even River Park. So we're not even using reclaimed water there at this time. As far as the smart controller portion of that question, of course. One of the things that Steve Howlett, who's on this call, our Assistant Public Works Director, is working on with the Parks Department and special districts is establishing one unified irrigation system for the city so that those systems can be placed on smart controller, smart systems, like we have other places within the city, so that it becomes a lot easier to shut off and turn on irrigation, receive notifications when things are broken, and more streamline those efforts. So that is something that the city as a whole is looking into.
Right. I'll follow up to the previous question on the general fund and the responsibility for paying the outside that the CFD will be picking up. So to recap and go back to the beginning, the general fund initially did not have that responsibility. Your community, your LMDs were paying for the exterior, medium, parkways, all those improvements were part of your assessment district back in 1988, 1996, and so on. Your rates were flat all those years. It has never changed. So eventually they were taken off, and back in 2017, 16, all the exterior improvements were removed and turned over to the general fund, who today does have a responsibility to maintain that. So it's sort of like, okay, well, they do now. When I was looking at the budget for this meeting, top of my head, I want to say the item to maintain the whole city's medians and parkways was $1 million, okay? That is just not possible. So yes, the general fund currently has it. It's doing a horrible job because they have no money to pay for it. And in fact, I want to say I have in here the amount of acres. It's 129 acres throughout the city being maintained with $1 million. It's just not there. So yes, effectively, you will be now taking back what was your responsibility by forming a CFD. So I hope that, and yes, that will relieve the general fund of some pressure, which is not very much, because I can only imagine how much money they're actually spending in your medium, your parkway, that section, going there once a year, part of 129 acres of a $1 million budget. It's just not there. There's not much being spent. I feel like you taking it over back like you had it before will bring it back, will provide you with the satisfaction and the happiness of seeing incredible landscaping surrounding your community. So that's my proposal. Again, all this is to be worked out, right? So
And medians and exterior improvements were included in places like Westport, Seabridge, River Park, the new Amazon property, to ensure the values of the surrounding homes. So it does place the responsibility on those parcels. However, it can never be affected by the general fund. So if there are budget cuts to the city general fund, that will not affect how your medians and exterior improvements get maintained.
It will be an oasis in the city. And yes, there are communities in the city, what I will call older, previously established communities, not developer communities, that don't have LMDs. They never had them. So this is in regards to this question about communities that don't have LMDs. Yes, those communities never had them. They also never had any services. They always have gotten very, very bad exterior improvements. Interior, I don't even know if they get anything. Those are not developer. They're older communities, and I don't think there's a comparison between those communities and your communities that from the get-go had all these beautiful planning materials and landscaping, right? So it's very, very different. How will the median responsibility for the median vineyard be apportioned between the district, right, and the south end? So that's what the, Ned, that's what the spatial tax consultant will do. I really can't answer that question now because we have no actual diagram, right, of where the trees are going to be, what the median is going to look like. We don't know what the materials are, what parts will have plants, what will not have plants. There's many ways you can structure this. In fact, you know, this is part of the design phase, right? Working with you all to figure out how much you want in the medians, how much you want in the parkways. But yes, there will be a calculation that indicates, okay, maybe for these parcels, they really don't see any medium or parkway improvements for a long time. Therefore, they should be in a separate zone within the CFD. Again, these are called improvement areas. The CFD can have multiple and different rates, not just for different types of homes or properties, but also areas of the district. All that is going to be figured out much later once we have a budget figure out and sort of what we want to build and maintain. But that's part of the process indeed, yes.
I just want to mention, I feel like there may be some disconnect with the questions about the city's responsibilities. The reason we are going through this process and we're asking for volunteers from the community to come forward and figure out what your community truly wants is because, yes, the city is responsible for maintaining those, the streets outside of your community at this time. And what we've heard from many residents is they're not happy with the level of service. So the city can remain maintaining those, and right. it can stay status quo, and we can wait for the city to get to a point where they maintain them at a level that you're happy with. But what this process is doing is saying that you don't want to wait for the city to come around. We're going to take action now and do something, whatever, if it's through funding and volunteering, you know, whatever the mixture is, but that you as residents of the community no longer want to wait for the general fund to pay for this because it's not to the level that you'd like to see your community at. So yeah, I mean, the city is responsible for those streets at this time, or that area, the medians. It's just, so I think we keep going back to that. It's just, we're trying to determine if that's acceptable for you and your neighbors.
So it's 7:30. You want to do a last run through, see if there are any more questions? If not, I'd like to go over the next steps and, you know, go from there.
Okay. Any final questions from anyone on the phone?
Okay. So next steps I have on the screen. Can you see that, Danielle? Should I make it any bigger? You try. How about that?
Perfect.
It's as big as I can make it. I have highlighted in yellow two very important things. We have created a page dedicated to this effort, right? If you go to the CivicMic ReNew Oxnard News, you will find your team and the description of your community there. And I can show you that actually real quick. It looks like this, right? This is that page. And you can find Team 11, California Cove, Greystone, Revitalization, Tropez, Vineyards, go in there. And there you will find this information that was discussed tonight there. The video will be there eventually. Just give us a few days because we have to process it. I have to process the documents, but everything will be here, okay? And you can read all the stories. And as we make progress and we have additional meetings, the documents will continue to be posted here, okay? So it's always easy to find. If you don't remember the page, just go to civicmic.com and you simply drop to Oxnard. You go to ReNew Oxnard News, and it takes you to the same place, right? It's very, very easy to get there. I want to say the city also has a link to this page. I want to say we sent it, right? So this is where we're going to keep track of the effort for the various teams that we're working with. So this document will show up there and there will be additional notes added and things like that as we make progress. Second thing in yellow on the screen is the most important thing from tonight's meeting. Danielle, how many emails have you received so far?
Tonight? Oh, look at this. I have, yes, Linda.
Good.
All right.
Good.
Yes.
Very good. We're excited to hear that. So we want Danielle to get emails tonight and tomorrow, okay? As many as possible so that we can then meet with you as a separate committee and organize with you and provide you the documents, provide you the information, and get you on your way to meet with others so that we can also work with Jerry, the team, to devise budgets, costs for the next meeting. If we do not have a citizens committee, we really can't get much further than these meetings. So we really need you, okay? We need this committee. Without it, we had at most 28 people in today's meeting, I believe. There are hundreds of parcels in this group. That's not sufficient to get 2/3, right? So we want to make progress, but we need your participation and a committee organized to help us, right? So next steps is to coordinate the creation of the committee. We will provide support to the committee. We'll work with the Special Districts Division to create cost estimates. And then we're going to work through that process with you. And we'll do this over this last one, review and redo, review up to the budget review with you and the committee until we find that sweet spot. Questions like, okay, what goes where? What kind of trees, what landscaping is going to be where, and so on and so on and so on. What things you want? Do you want sidewalks? Do you not want that? What kind of trimming schedule are we looking at? All of that's need to be figured out. We'll get to a point, many iterations that, okay, this seems to be what most people support. We then will run some estimated rates. We'll share that with you so that you can see exactly what it looks like or it would look like in your tax bill, knowing that your existing assessment will go away. We'll talk about inflators. We'll talk about sunsets. We'll talk about renewal processes and all these things and structure pretty much anything you need. We can structure into this financing mechanism with the dashboard, transparency requirements, everything you like. We can put it all together in one big package, then share with you all for you to take to the community and get us a 2/3 sort of petition process. We want to see that indeed there's sufficient support, right? And then we can initiate the expensive part of the project, which is to hire the special tax consultant to start forming the district, go through the city, and then with a ballot procedure, ballots go out to the registered voters. By then, we should have done all the homework with you, right? We should have gone out. You should have gone out door to door. You should have come back with, oh my God, yes, we got all these people that are in support of this. It's time to start forming the district. That's what the future looks like. It's a lot of work. So you'll be spending a lot of time with Danielle, Jerry, and I, if all goes well. I think that's it for me.
Yes, and if you have any interest at all, volunteer for the committee. Let me know that you're interested. We're not going to meet on a daily basis. We will make sure that we are upfront with the time and respect your time. And, there will be different roles for different people on the committee. So If you're worried about, maybe not having the time commitment, reach out to us, let us know that you'd like to be involved, and then we can see how we can get you involved in that process.
We'll make the video available in a few days. You'll be able to watch it. If there's a point where my accent was, and I spoke too fast, which I tend to do, I apologize. If you did not understand something I say, please email me or email Danielle. She has been working with me for way too long and speaks bad English. So she'll be able to help you out for sure. It's been a pleasure, and I thank you all for attending. I really commend you all for participating, and I'm really proud of you that you took the time. I know that it's a lot of work and effort, and I can only say that I believe this is doable. We can do this. It's going to take time and effort, but it's not impossible. Okay, this is definitely something you can accomplish, and you can end up with a better community, better landscaping. I guarantee you that a properly funded special districts division will take very good care of you. Jerry's awesome. Her team is really good. And we hear very good things about them. If they had the funding and the staffing, they could definitely take care of you. And I would love to drive to Oxnard when this is all said and done and take pictures and say that we were all a part of this effort. So we're very proud of that. I'm looking forward to that day. Neil?
Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you for having
Have a good night.